Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Volquest podcast. I am Eric Kane alongside Rob Lewis, Austin Price, and Brent Hubbs. Appreciate you guys for being here. A lot to discuss in terms of recruiting this Tuesday morning. Big Orange BBQ was this past weekend. Official visits getting kicked off this weekend coming up in the month of June. SEC spring meetings wrapped up last week. A lot of talking. Not a whole lot was established or a whole lot was done. We'll kind of get in to some of our reactions from some of the big topics from Destin here on this podcast as well. With baseball playing late on a Monday night, no baseball talk on this podcast, but potentially some baseball conversations coming up later today if Tennessee were to have won and advance on in NCAA tournament action. All right, Austin Price, Big Orange BBQ. Overall, thoughts on the weekend? Pretty good group, pretty talented group of guys that were in on campus. A lot of 27s, couple 28s. But this was important and obviously strategic for this staff a lot of focus obviously on the class of 26, but still wanting to get off to a great start with that 27 class.
Well, 27s, 28s, I mean, getting as many young kids in here as possible is huge, Eric. I mean, the more times you can get them to campus, the better chance you have. That's tried and true for many, many years, even with the money side of things. I mean, you know, to get their interest, to want them to talk about money, you got to get their interest first. So getting the 27s and 28s here this weekend was obviously big. A lot of high-end guys, a couple of talented offensive linemen, some talented edge players, some talented running backs. And Brent, it all starts with the guy that ball fans know the most and probably covered the most out of that list because they know the last name, and that is Jason Witten's kid, Cooper Witten.
Yeah, and I think this was important. This weekend was not about Jason Witten's kid being here. It was about Cooper Witten being here. And what I mean by that is this was not a celebration of a family reunion because Jason and his wife were not in town. It was all about Cooper. I think it was important that it was all about Cooper. It wasn't everybody walking around going, up to his dad going, man, I remember you did this and that, everything else. This was really about Cooper getting a deep dive into Tennessee from an X's and O's standpoint. In terms of film study with William Inge and Tim Banks, spending a lot of time with Josh Heupel, spending a lot of time with other recruits and current players. This was an important visit, I think, from that standpoint. And Rob, I think when you have a legacy guy, you have to make it very clear that you're recruiting that particular kid. You're not recruiting the legacy. You're recruiting the kid. Cooper Witten is a good football player, one of the best linebackers in the country. And this weekend was about Cooper, not about Cooper Witten. It was about Cooper, and I think that was important.
Yeah, and I think, and AP, you know this too. I mean, it's different for every kid. I mean, some kids are, really, it's that way to an extreme, and some kids, might show up wearing a Tennessee baseball cap, or something because they're used to tailgating there every year, but every weekend, but Cooper Witten didn't grow up like that. But man, I was going to ask you guys on the front end. I mean, now that he's been here, it's a little early now since he's 27, so it's not a frenzy. But next year, when he is, when and if he is a 5-star, recruit, top 25 player, most coveted Tennessee recruit sits fill in the blank.
I mean,
if he is a 5-star, 4 or 5-star, top 50, top 5 at his position player.
Well, I mean, I would tell you probably Eric Berry, but the facts are Jason was a much better player than James statistically, right?
And remember this too about James. Sorry to interrupt you. James seemed like he was older. Like his playing days were further in the window when Eric came out as a recruit.
Yes.
I mean Jason's not that far removed from still being a player, and part of it's NFL, but I mean, there's enough people who remember Jason Witten as a football player at Tennessee who are going to be coveting and really going to be about, about Cooper as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if he can get as high as Eric. I mean, Eric was a top 5 player nationally. But Cooper's going to be in that 5-star range, Rob. And I mean, he's one that, is super well put together. I think mentally, and just talking to him, I was really just impressed at just how he could just kind of chop it up. I mean, he handled himself with a lot of class, handled himself, just like a pro. And I'm not surprised by that, but at the same time, I mean, you never know what a kid's going to be like, right? I mean, is he going to be, because he grew up around a dad who played professional sports? Is he going to kind of be, a little quieter, a little more shut off from somebody he doesn't know? And I did not find that. I mean, I thought he was very cooperative, very gracious with his time, and seemed to be really enjoying himself. I do think it helped that he had JPP surround him all weekend. Those two families obviously know each other quite well, Brent, and I think that having a running buddy that's your age that Tennessee's also offered, I think probably helps. Look at the camera work. Look at the camera work from Brent Hubbs right here.
No, I do think that helps. I think that's a good point. Here's the other thing that stood out to me, and just listening to his interview and just kind of talking with him a little bit. He's been to Knoxville a lot more than I knew he had been to Knoxville. He came in with his mom a good bit for games growing up. They just weren't on the sideline. They didn't have field passes. They never went about that business. Like if dad was going on a road trip somewhere, they came in, I won't say every year or for a bunch of games, but Cooper's been to Tennessee games more than I thought Cooper had been to Tennessee games. Maybe Austin, you knew that. I did not realize he had been as a frequent of a visitor throughout his life to Tennessee as he's been.
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew he had been in town for games. I think that coming without dad, coming with mom, I think that allows him to kind of fly under the radar. Because it's not like he's like a super recognizable face. He's going to come in. No one's going to know, especially as a younger kid. No one's going to know who he is. Nobody's going to know who the wife is unless they personally know them. And so they can kind of come in and be in what I call gin pop. they're out there with regular fans, and nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know who they are. And I think that's a plus. And he does come in town. I because of Sean coaching at Elizabethton and my relationship with him, like we FaceTime with Sean, and Sean was chopping it up with him and stuff. And Sean told him, he's got go Vols. And I said, that's coming from a Hokie, which is funny. Just because Sean played at Virginia Tech. And, I said, you ever been to Pals? Because food's always a point of conversation with me. But it's one of those things where people always like to talk about that stuff. And he goes, oh my gosh, I love Pals. And so he's been in town enough to have been there a few times to know whether he likes it. So, he said he comes in town to see that his extended uncle or his uncles, it's not extended uncles, just his uncles and Coach Ryder's grandfather before he passed, once or twice a year. And so that don't count football trips into town. So he's been here more than you think.
What's when you look at prospects like this, they got these checklists, the boxes here. He does this, he does this, he does this. Obviously a really, really good player. We know that it's in his genes, but what does he do well as the football player? He's a linebacker. Is he good in space? I know he was once upon a time a defensive back, and I would imagine he's pretty good out of the box. What does he do well, Austin, in terms of Cooper Witten, the football player?
Speed and explosiveness. Like if you watch his film, Brent, he's got pretty good explosiveness, and his time as a DB helps him understand spacing, helps him understand, moving within the scheme of the defense.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and we're not completely back to where we were years ago when the old Jimmy Johnson started it, where everybody who's a safety becomes a linebacker, and everybody who's a linebacker becomes a defensive end, and the defensive ends become defensive tackles. The linebacker position in college football right now is a much more open field position than it was, a decade ago, and certainly more than it was 15 years ago. If you're a box guy only, you've got some limitations. I think when you talk about what does Cooper Witten do right now, you look at him, depending on how much he grows, how much more size he puts on, you feel like he's got a chance to be a 3-down linebacker. And that's what everybody in college football is looking for, because that guy's going to have to cover in space. He's going to have to do some things in space. And that's an element that I think everybody likes about his game.
Yep, sideline to sideline player, got to be that type of guy in a 4-2-5, and that is the base defense for pretty much anybody right now. But great point. It's the old days of a 4-3 Mike backer. That's just not the case anymore. You got to be able to move, and if you can't move, then you're not in there playing as many snaps. And when you have limitations, they pick on you. And we've seen that over the years here at Tennessee in the last couple of years specifically. So Cooper Witten, obviously somebody to be paying attention to. Let's run down the list here. A couple other guys that were in town. Obviously not a legacy player, but a guy that goes to school right down the road at Baylor, one of the best running back prospects in this class, and that is David Gabriel Georges. Austin was on campus just a little while ago, right? I mean, he continues to come back to school, and this is a huge priority for Tennessee when you look at running back in this class.
Yeah, Canadian kid that plays at Chattanooga Baylor, and was fantastic a year ago. I mean, just unbelievable as a sophomore, and will be a junior this fall. Last year he was splitting time with Shakai Mills-Knight, the Ole Miss signee. This year, it's his world, and everybody in the high school realm in Chattanooga is going to be living in it. I mean, he is fantastic. Obviously, he's got Tennessee commit Gabe Osenda blocking for him. He's been around some Tennessee players like Joakim Dodson, obviously Osenda. I think that matters. There's plenty of Tennessee people in Chattanooga. To me, this is a Tennessee-Ohio State battle. The Buckeyes are definitely in it. But Tennessee, to me, is, as he called them, a top team because they were the first to offer him. They were the first to see his potential before he actually put film on tape as a high school player. And I mean, he's well put together. He looks like he's been in the college weight room already. He's a legit 6 foot. He's 210 pounds, and a kid that's super explosive, can run. There's nothing you don't like about his game. It's simply put. I mean, there's not a lot of weaknesses, Hubs.
Well, I mean, he's the ever popular bus guy from Canada. I mean, the guy that you're looking at, like, hey, you want him to get off the bus early because he's well put together. And it's that Canadian to Baylor pipeline that seems really unique, but it is certainly working for Baylor. And he is well put together. I mean, he looks like a guy who physically is not going to have to do he's not going to have a huge learning curve from a physical standpoint because of just the way he's built. He's pretty.
Yeah, for any of you guys, I mean, how much, and AP, you kind of mentioned this. I mean, Tennessee was the first to offer him, but I mean, he's not an East Tennessee kid. He lives in East Tennessee right now, plays football in Chattanooga, but he's not an East Tennessee kid. Still, how much does the Power T kind of weigh on him, knowing that it's literally everywhere you turn?
I don't know if it lays on him because I don't think he's that kind of personality, but I do think he's a loyal kind of guy. And, I think, there have been people in Tennessee that have I don't mean the University of Tennessee, I'm just talking about Tennessee in general, that have, made an impact on him down in Chattanooga. And I mean, I think that's, part of the allure to Tennessee. He sees kind of the network of people that are Tennessee people that went to school at Tennessee and sees the hospitality. And I think that resonates. He seems like a kid that is loyal from a standpoint of, once you kind of win him over with your actions, then I mean he is going to reciprocate very much so.
Well, remember this too. I mean, he's coming from Canada, so there's not a lot of. I mean, he might have grown up knowing some college football teams, but it's not like he transferred in from Pennsylvania, and anything like that. I mean, he didn't have any real loyalty, I don't think, to anybody when he transferred in from Canada, which probably helps. I mean, the school he probably knows the most about is Tennessee because that's the school he hears about the most.
Absolutely.
Now, he's learning about other schools, but it's not like he's transferred in from another state where, he grew up or he's he's got family that's a legacy to another school like that. So I think that probably helps Tennessee's chances as well.
When you think about trying to figure out who the quarterbacks could potentially be for the class of 2027, Tennessee did a great job evaluating, picking the quarterbacks that they want the last couple of cycles. I mean, Faison committed last August. I'm not saying that's going to happen again this summer, but Tennessee's starting to kind of figure out which guys they like in this class. One of those guys, one of the better quarterbacks in the class, Jace Johnson, was on campus for the Big Orange BBQ. Austin, how did Tennessee do there? Where is he on Tennessee's pecking order and kind of that quarterback mix there for the Vols as they try to figure out who their guy could be?
Yeah, I don't think there's a pecking order to this point, Eric. I do think that they're getting to the point where they want to start really kind of narrowing that down and finding out what direction they want to go. Had a really good time. It's hard to have a bad time at those deals. But Tennessee's obviously very much in it with Jace. And then Tennessee offered a young man at camp on Sunday from Milton High School named Derek Baker. So, I mean, you got, two really talented players that were in town. And, Jace is a good-looking kid who went through camp Sunday and has a nice arm. Seems polished and seems like throws a pretty good ball.
Yeah, gonna be hard. Gonna be hard. Gonna be hard to recruit a quarterback. I mean, if everybody stays, right? I mean, it's just everybody recruit like Jace is gonna look at a lot of SEC schools. I think possibility of playing earlier in his career, not necessarily year one, but pretty quickly is something all these guys are gonna look at. Rob, there's only one football, right? And everybody knows who you just signed, who's a freshman on campus, in George McIntyre, and everybody knows who's coming to Tennessee to be on campus in January, in Faison. So it's going to be it's going to be a heck of a recruiting job for Tennessee to land a real high profile quarterback in the 27 class, provided what you think is going to be here is going to be here in 26.
I wanted to ask AP, how accelerated has that clock gotten? Because we're talking about and I know it's reality. I mean, I know we're not making stuff up here, but we're talking about a rising junior who, because of what your roster is going to look like, because of a guy who's still not even here yet. In some cases, it's not here. How accelerated is the clock? If you're recruiting a top 10 quarterback, realistically these days.
I think it's accelerated quite a bit. Now it's been the same way the last couple of years. I mean, like it's not like it's just this year's class. And the other thing, to me, it's not even the you have who's on campus and all that. I don't think that's it at all, because most kids aren't scared. Most kids are unfazed and are not scared of other players. I think the biggest thing is from the school side is how much money can you realistically put in
NIL allocation.
Yeah, I mean, how much money can you realistically put in your quarterback room? I think that's probably the biggest thing.
It's a great point.
When talking about can you financially go after another high-end player?
3 years in a row, can you try to recruit the top 10 guy?
Yes, I think that's. I mean, I don't think any of these players go, "Oh, George McIntyre, I'm not going."
Well, and again, you can transfer out, as quick as you wanted to. But I mean, everybody's going to try to recruit that against you. But your point about NIL allocation is by far the better point, no doubt.
And I would tell you this too. I think in this world, in this era, it's a lot easier to take a chance. Like if a player's not sure on a school, but they really like them, they like them the most, but they got this little self-doubt. It's a lot easier to take that leap of faith and leave the state of Tennessee and go to another school, or leave Georgia and come to Tennessee, or whatever, than the past, because you can go and come as you please. Now, if they ever go back to the original rules, like where you have to set out a year, and I don't think that's happening, but probably a 1 year, only one-time transfer, I think kids would be a little bit more timid and selective. I think it's a lot easier to take a shot, take your chance. Like if you're a mid-level QB and you get a big-time offer, I'm going to go take my shot at Georgia. I'm going to go take my shot at Texas. And then worst-case scenario, I bounce out of there in a year and go somewhere else. I mean, I think that also factors into some of this.
But you're not going to take your shot if you're a big-time guy and you're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of the Tennessee Adidas Nike deal, right? Yeah. I mean, like if someone's offering you 4 times the amount, or 2 times the amount, or 10 times the amount, I mean, you're probably gonna look at that pretty hard. Like, I mean, like it's you're not gonna be like, I mean, I'm not saying, again, if it's close enough, then that's when you go, you know what, I'll take $50,000 less to play where I want to play versus.
But could NIL, like if you were in the kid's top 5, like Johnson right now, before his junior year, could you get there, next summer if you were off the radar?
Yeah, you can. I mean, a lot of the kids will be off the board by then, but you can. I mean, because of NIL.
Here's the other thing that's bigger picture too, kind of back to what you were talking about, Rob, in terms of acceleration. It's not just quarterbacks. I don't think. It feels to me like, Austin, kids are – obviously we know the NIL factor, but it feels like there's a much faster fatigue factor for prospects with the recruiting process than there used to be. It's funny because when they went to unlimited official visits, you thought, oh, man, some kids going to take 15 official visits. Most kids aren't taking 5 official visits, it doesn't feel like. And it feels like all positions are wanting to come off the board earlier. It feels like there's a real fatigue factor for a lot of kids and parents out there from a recruiting standpoint. Now, maybe that's because they're trying to get their NIL deal and secure a spot, and maybe it's all about that part of it. but it feels different than I thought it would in terms of all positions wanting to get it done faster.
Yeah, all of them do. And to the point of what you're making, I'm hearing guys that are in the 27 class that are like, I'm ready to be done. I've taken my visit. Because here's the thing. So many people.
You got game days, junior days, spring practice, Big Orange barbecues. I mean,
before there's ever official visits, they've been to campus so many times.
Yeah. I mean, the official visit's a victory lap. I mean, it really
is in a lot of ways. I mean, again, not for everybody, but in some ways it is. I mean, because even if you don't know where you're going, most kids are like, I'm going to take 4, but I really know it's between these 2. So these other 2 visits are just kind of, and that's when parents go, enough.
Yeah.
Like you're right. Everybody thought when they said unlimited official visits, that it would be like everybody taking all these official visits, and it's not. And you know why? Because mom and dad said, I have to work. I can't be gone again. I can't leave on Friday early again for the 17th straight week. I can't do that. I have a job to do with my real job. You have to make a decision. You know that it's between these 2 schools. Figure it out and make a decision.
Here's the other thing.
Parents get anal about that.
Yeah, here's the other thing I wonder too a little bit. And Rob, this may factor into basketball because basketball official visits is weird because you can take one as a junior and one as a senior.
I like that rule.
I wonder if schools are a little bit more selective about using official visit. Like, am I wasting my time? You know what I mean? Because you see them so much unofficially, you probably know, like, do we have a shot here, or we just wasted our time? The old notion always used to be, if you get them on campus, you got a shot. I don't know that plays as true as it used to be because kids are so far further along in the decision-making process. And who's asking just for a lot of NIL money or who's realistically interested in that school? I think schools are looking to be a bit more selective with official visits as well.
Well, Hubbard, I think the premise still applies, but I think now it's what you said. The official visit's a victory lap. You still got to get them on campus, but you got to get them on campus 2 or 3 times when they're sophomores to have a shot. Unless it's just a straight up, NIL deal where you come in hard because you have a need late. But I mean, it feels to me like guys, if you're not, I'm not saying you got to be in the top 3 or 4, but if you're not in that mix of 6 or 8 by the time the kid's a junior, it feels like you got a lot of ground to make up these days.
Another elite prospect that was on campus for the Big Orange BBQ. Brent, you had a chance to catch up with him. I mean, we're talking about a top 5 player, top 6, 7 player in the country. And that is cornerback Joshua Dobson. 3rd trip already. Again, this is kind of going on that conversation. I mean, again, 27 prospect. This was his 3rd trip to Tennessee already. What did he have to say about his latest trek here to Knoxville?
Well, to follow that up, I said, well, have you been to Tennessee more than you've been anywhere else? He goes, no, I wouldn't say that. I've probably been to several places as many times as I've been to Tennessee. So, I think Texas is going to be a school to watch there. This guy is, I mean, he's got everybody in the country. I mean, he can go anywhere he wants to go. Everybody covets him. Unique skill set, long guy, good press corner. Fort Mill, South Carolina. Clemson's coming. South Carolina's swinging as hard as they can. Tennessee, obviously. Texas is going to be in it. Georgia's going to be in it. It's going to be a who's who. I think getting him here as many times as you can is important. He felt like he got a lot more time with Josh Heupel this go around, this visit, which was important for him. But I think settle in on this one for a bit. I mean, he's a 27. He's going to narrow it to probably 12 by the end of summer. And then he wants to be done this time next year, finishing up some official visits. So I do think Tennessee's going to be in it for the long haul. I think they're in it. He likes them well enough, but there'll be a lot of factors. Obviously, NIL will be a factor for him as well.
And before we go any further, I want to say this. I've thought long and hard about this, Hubs. This is my PSA for fans. Like, I get the notion of, well, recruiting doesn't matter. It's going to boil down to the money. I just want to focus on the portal. The problem is Tennessee's not focusing on the portal. Like, Tennessee's still recruiting most of their roster from the prep ranks because that's kind of how they view doing it. They don't want to do it like Ole Miss does it and bring in 67 transfers. That's not how they want to build. They want to have the culture built from the ground up. So, like, if you're a fan, I get maybe like recruiting has changed and it's not as easy to just be bought in on, let's say, Josh Dobson type player anymore because of things can change on a dime. Tennessee can go from the penthouse to the outhouse or vice versa in a hurry with NIL. But this is still how they build their roster. So, like I would tell you, paying attention to 865 Live, paying attention to the Big Orange BBQ, paying attention to any of those junior days, still something as a fan you should be paying attention to, because that's where Josh Heupel and company want to build their roster from predominantly.
Well, you're right. You're exactly right. Here's the other thing too. I think when you're talking about high-end prospects, guys who are highly regarded, highly acclaimed, lots of stars, wanted by everybody.
Sure.
Everybody, if you really covet that guy, if that person is a pressing need in your class, everybody's going to be in the same zip code or two from an NIL standpoint. Okay, so if you're pretty even there, okay, then it's going to get back to what? It's going to get back to that relationship, which is why it's important that these guys are on campus. Now, there are going to be other prospects where you may feel like your school is in great shape with that kid, and then somebody out of left field comes in and offers a big bag of money because they've got money really for the first time with rev share and stuff coming in, and all of a sudden that one just, wait a minute, that was out of left field. And that's the one that frustrates you from an NIL standpoint. From the big time prospects, that NIL playing fields. I mean, I don't know that we're going to live in a world where somebody's just going to $500,000 more somebody else, right? I mean, I think we're getting back to a little bit of that being a little more even with some of those elite. There'll be exceptions at all positions. Don't get me wrong, but I do think it's balancing out with the elite prospects. It's that mid-range guy who all of a sudden jumps up and is getting an offer of 4 times more than he was at the school that led for him 3 or 4 weeks ago. That's hard for fans to get their hands around, AP.
Absolutely. It's because now Vanderbilt has money to spend. Purdue has money to spend. Wisconsin, more money to spend. They had money, but I mean, more money to spend. I mean, those teams all of a sudden are willing to go, you know what? We kind of are desperate, so we're going to offer this, blank player out of blank state, a little bit more of a gross amount than maybe the home state school would, because they think they can get him for less. And then all of a sudden it puts you in a decision as the home state school to go, do I really want to pay this for this player? I mean, we think he's a good, solid player. He's a developmental guy. He's going to help us in 2 years. Do we pay him this amount of money just to sit there? Or do we just let him go away, let him earn his stripes, and then potentially bring him back out of the portal? Because, I mean, all kids want to come home. And so, it's always going to be an interesting deal. You're right. I think it is leveling out for the elite guys, because then because you're right. I mean, for the Dobson kid, what are the NIL offers going to be for him? I'm not saying a number, but like they're all going to be relatively the same.
I would think so. Yeah.
Very similar for an elite guy.
Right.
And so, as you said, it comes back down to the pilot in the box, to quote Top Gun Maverick, and it comes back down to the recruit.
Well, and there, Rob, is your de facto salary cap. It's not a salary cap; it's a decision cap. Back to your allocation. Okay, so we think player X is worth this. So I don't want to say get him on the cheap, but we're trying to get maybe a little bit of a brother-in-law deal here. Then
Sure.
Somebody comes in with a lot more money. Now you're making a decision. That's a salary cap decision. That's a talent versus that amount of dollars versus your allocation. So there's kind of a de facto deal sort of brewing there a little bit. Now, not completely, because some schools are still going to pay crazy amounts of money compared to somebody else. But you are going to see more decisions, I think, made for schools where they go, no, we can do better in the pool. We want to save that money for a portal kid who's an impact guy, or we don't think the value is there. So there's a little bit of that starting slowly to develop. It's a long ways from being a true cap, but there are some decisions making going on that wasn't there a few years ago.
No, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think some of the craziness on the top end is going to dissipate. But I mean, as you know, as we always say, I mean, it just takes one.
Right.
In this league, especially, like if there's a coaching change and you got a bunch of boosters going all in, coach, we got you. Here's your NIL war chest for this year, and suddenly shopping in the SEC goes crazy. But you're right, Hubbard. I mean, I think you are seeing kind of a ceiling at least be established, except for the occasional Maverick.
Well, and here's the thing. Football was ahead of basketball in NIL. I think we would all agree with that when it first came out. Football was ahead. Well, now you're going to be, Austin, Eric, at 105 scholarships. Okay, and you're going to be whatever your roster number is going to be. Let's just say schools get to, $35 million or $30 million for their roster. Then there's basketball coming in at 15 scholarships that are going to be putting half of that into 15 guys. The basketball world chaos of big money is not changing because one guy can make such a difference in the world of basketball that I think the numbers in basketball are going to be all over the map more than they are going to be in football because of the number of kids you're playing and the salary and the money that people are putting into basketball rosters right now. That may change. That may, those roster numbers may change, but boy, they have jumped a lot the last couple of years in terms of the amount of money being spent by programs around the country in college basketball.
A lot of changes going on around college athletics in terms of roster size and all that and more, and plenty more changes to come. It'll be interesting to keep track of all that. Big Orange BBQ, still a lot of prospects that were in town that we didn't even get to. A couple of edge players, really good players, KJ Green, Antoine Higgins, Anthony Sweeney, 2028 wide receiver, Braylon Clark, number 2 linebacker, Cooper Witten, number 1 linebacker, number 2 linebacker, Caden Henderson was in town, Donovan Moore, defensive lineman. Really, really good group on campus, and Matt and Brent and AP continue to put out some stories throughout the week on the Big Orange BBQ. Do want to shift gears here, kind of go back to the class at hand in class of 2026. June is here, big time official visit month coming up. I know there's some bigger weekends later in the month on the calendar, AP, but Tennessee will get started this weekend. What's this weekend looking like numbers-wise, headliners? What should fans expect to come out of Rocky Top this weekend in terms of OVs?
Yeah, you're right. The next 2 weekends are massively bigger, but this weekend has still got some really nice star power. We'll start with in-state with Joel Wyatt, who will be in town for his official visit. He was just here a week and a half ago for the for 865 Live. He's back again. Darius Gray, top-end offensive lineman from the state of Virginia. He was just at Georgia this past weekend. He'll be here for his official visit this weekend. Ed Baker, defensive lineman, another, Leo and Keyshawn Eliezer. I'm struggling with that kid's name every time. And then fans may know the name Kedrick Golston, the second, which is his dad played for Rodney at Georgia. Defensive lineman. He's from up in Virginia, right around Washington, D.C. He'll be in town. He was just here for 865 Live as well. Tennessee's really in that one. Now, the question is how hard is Georgia pushing there? I don't know at this point. The longer this thing plays out, I think the better Tennessee's chances are. But again, a lot of that I think will depend on how hard Georgia pushes. Obviously, the ties there, much like when Tennessee has a kid with Tennessee ties. Luke Thompson, safety out of Franklin, will be in town this weekend. He is a track guy, can really, really run. And then KJ McClain, a DB out of the state of New Jersey, will also be in town this weekend.
Hey, Rob, it feels good when you hear Golston's name, right? I mean, it
does not ever.
It feels great the fact that you spent 5 Sunday nights in the month of January trying to figure out. I mean, you had a shot.
You didn't jump on this when we talked about Cooper Witten for 10 minutes, and that Kedrick Golston pulls that.
Yeah,
one out.
I mean, Jason was kind of an early commit. I mean, I think everybody sort of knew where Jason was going to go to school.
Well, I'm just talking about how many. I mean,
all those, they're all out there. I mean, I'm at camp on Sunday, and there's Tad Golden's there with his kid.
Ken Johnson.
Ken Johnson, former operations and assistant basketball coach Ken Johnson was in town with his kid, Ken's up in Indiana now. Quincy Prigmore was there. Just a lot of, just a reminder, Eric, I'm old.
But yeah, Golston for sure jumped out. I had to had to scratch my eye.
I was gonna say you guys pick up the phone, call the kid. It'd be full circle moment, right? I mean, just bring it all back around.
I've had a couple of those. Now, Tad Golden remembers me obviously because he played here, and some of those are cool. But you had some other guys that you called, man. I called you a lot, and he's like, yeah. I said you shouldn't remember me. It was funny. Like LeVar Arrington was in town, I guess last year. AP. I was like, man, everybody knew you weren't coming, but everybody called you all the time to see what was going on. Of course, his son ended up following in his footsteps at Penn State as well.
Feels like the month of June from a staff perspective. I mean, don't get me wrong, you're always working. You got the football season, which you're pretty busy. The month of December is just nuts. December, January. But the June in terms of recruiting, I mean, this is that month where really started kicking off this past weekend with Memorial Day weekend with 865 Live. Had a couple of camps, but you're gonna have camps. You're gonna have official visit weekends. In the future, maybe you'll have OTAs. I mean, the month of June, Brent, is a huge month on the calendar for your college football staff. It's one where you don't get a whole lot of sleep, I feel like.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, Tennessee did the barbecue this weekend. Okay, it's the first time they've done it this time of year. The reason they did it is because July is now completely dead. They took that's dangling last week in July, Austin, where you felt like you had to do something that you really – I mean, the kids didn't really like, what are we doing? It was just the most kind of thrown out there week. And if you didn't do something, then you were like failing in recruiting or whatever. So
if you're not doing it, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, they're all doing it.
So
you're also bumping up against high school practice.
It was tough. I mean, so they fixed. That's the only fix they've made in a calendar in about 10 years. It feels like in the right direction, but they did get that taken care of. But yeah, June is crazy hectic when you talk about camps, and I think the other question, if you're talking big picture, as you move forward, where is the true value in camps at this point in time? And I think that's something that we'll look at. Do you limit the number of camps you have some more? Where do you feel like the value is in a camp as opposed to a kid coming in town for an unofficial and working out himself?
Well, Tennessee already has limited it quite a bit compared to like when Heupel first got here. That first year, man, they had like 4 million camps that June. And like now it's dwindled down to just a handful of days. Could you factor in like the big man day, and then you factor in specialists, which was, Sunday afternoon this past week. This Sunday they have another camp. And like Willie Miles' kid will be in town, Maxwell Miles, who's a 27 out of the state of Arizona. And so like you're constantly bringing kids in, but it's dwindled down quite a bit in my mind. But I still think that they're very important because, there are certain times, coaches want to be able to get their hands on a kid and see, okay, how tall really is he? How much does he really weigh? What's he move lateral quickness like? What does he run like? What's the bone density look like? What's the ankle stiffness?
Can he take my coaching, Rodney Garner?
It's all about doing it with younger kids, though. I mean, the value.
That's correct.
The value of older kids is a non-value now.
This year is 27, 28, 29.
Yeah,
which is getting scary because my oldest kid's a 31. He's a 31, and Rob's kid was like a 19, and that's a long time ago. And so was Hubs.
All right, so plenty of going on in recruiting right now as the calendar flips over to June. Out the door, do want to get your thoughts just real quick on some of the big topics, or really just your overwhelming opinion on how the SEC spring meetings went. It felt like there were always articles out there, quote here, quote there. Nothing was done. Nothing was accomplished. There's no finality to the SEC 8 or 9 game schedule that we've been talking about for 6 years because that's tied into the college football playoff expansion. College football playoff is going to expand, but what will it be? What will that format be? Is there going to be 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten SEC? Is it going to be the 5+11 model? What's that going to be? Rev share, house settlement, all that and more. Brent, overall thoughts on your biggest takeaway from the SEC spring meetings here as we conclude the Tuesday podcast.
Well, I mean, it continues to be that the coaches don't want to play 9 games. That's my biggest takeaway. Is the reason there's never been 9 games is that's not what coaches want to do. Coaches want to stay at 8 games, and the question is going to be, do they go to 9? Do they have to, and I think they will, but I mean, is it going to be dictated? Are they going to get forced into 9 because of the playoff model that they go to? Is it going to be? Are they going to get $80 to $100 million in TV revenue, and ADs are going to go to your coaches, and presidents are going to go to your coaches and go, "Yeah, you're playing 9, okay? Get over it. We're going to play 9. That's what we're going to do." It feels like that's where it's going to have to go, Rob, is somebody's going to have to step in and say, guys, you're playing 9. You're all making a lot of money, okay? You're going to play 9. I mean, the shift in the SEC's thought process going 5-11 versus that 4 automatic qualifier is strictly the coaches going, oh, okay, we'll do that and stay at 8 right? And so now you got this the Big Tens. Well, we're not going to agree to this. And at some point, somebody's got to set in and say, for the greater good of the game, this is what we're going to do.
Well, I mean, I think you're totally right, Hubbard. I mean, because somebody's going to write them. I think you're right. It's going to 9 eventually, and somebody will write that check. It'll be worthwhile. I thought Greg Sankey kind of softened the beachhead last weekend. I mean, not that it was a surprise, but it was all about schedule strength. He threw an overwhelming amount of data at people there that, going back 10 years and all right, if we go to 9 and, our teams are catching one more loss, let's just remember, we're not all playing on an equal field here. So, I mean, I think the most surprising thing to me coming out, and it's not surprising when you think about it, is how okay, or at least unnamed coaches in the SEC were with going 5-11 because, if it is a level playing field and the strength of the schedule is respected, be a lot of years where SEC gets in more than 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think when you look at it, Austin and Eric, when you look at where the Big Ten's conference is right now, we don't know where it's going to be in 5 years or 3 years, where it is right now. I mean, 4 automatic qualifiers for them. They're all about 4 automatic qualifiers. When you look at the depth of that conference versus the depth of the SEC, which was Greg Sankey's point.
Yeah, the Big Ten top end teams are right on par with the SEC top end teams, right? Penn State, Michigan, even though they had a down year last year, but over the last 5-6 years, Michigan, Ohio State, they're right there. Then you add in Oregon. There's a little bit of a drop off after that, but it's the bottom. Like the bottom of the SEC is infinitely higher than the bottom of the Big Ten by a lot. And there's just, I mean, like there are, for every Mississippi State, there is, a ton of Big Ten teams that are just pedestrian. And so like that, there lies the rub. That's why I like the whole strength of schedule and, 9 conference games. Yeah, Big Ten can say they play 9 conference games, but when you get 4 of them that are just jokes, it doesn't matter.
And if you talk about it, SEC, if you're having that play-in Saturday in Atlanta in the SEC, you'd have 2 big-time football games. You play that play-in thing in Chicago, you might have a couple of games where somebody's favored by 10 or 12 points.
Yeah, it's a total different deal. Here's the interesting thing, though, is do they really do the Big Ten and SEC really butt heads, or does the leadership say, you know what, we need each other more than we need this to get where we want to get to in terms of having more power, more saying power with the NCAA, potentially breaking away from the NCAA if that's where we're going? Do we need to be much more hand in hand than we do this deal? And so we're just going to have to, we're going to have to compromise here and get somewhere. I think that's the other big picture that you kind of wonder about behind the scenes. Like, they're playing nice publicly. How nice are they going to play privately, Rob? And how much do they have to play nice for them both to get what they want? That doesn't include the ACC and the Big 12.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think that's much more important, and they have much more in common, and that will, and the grown-ups in the room will see that's for a 4 or 5 year plan and billions of dollars, that weighs a lot more than Lane Kiffin, sad emoji tweeting, in late December.
Hard to bully the entire college football world by yourself, but when you have a running mate, especially as powerful as the Big Ten and the SEC, then it's pretty easy to go about your business like it has been the past couple of years. So
yeah, here's the other couple of things coming out of there that you knew they weren't going to get an answer, but they've got to get an answer. You can tell it's bothering the coaches. Okay, transfer portal window, AP got to make a decision. You're doing 2, you're doing 1, you're doing it in January, which is where the SEC wants to go. Like, it's June 2nd. Like, you need to make a decision here in the coming weeks. Guys, here's your port. This is what we're doing with the portal moving forward. It's hot. That thing's been on the table with the NCAA since January to get finalized.
And they're going to make a decision because they know they're going to get sued.
Well, here's the thing about that, and I agree with that. But the NCAA has to look at this and go, you know what, guys? We can't just bundle everything into house settlement. Well, we'll deal with that after the house We'll address that after the house settlement. I don't know if the house settlement's going to get done or when it's going to get done. Some of these other things are operational things, and you need to get your operational things together. Okay, you need to understand. You got to get your transfer portal window established, and if you're the SEC, you got to figure out what you're going to do in terms of number of games, because you got to build your schedule out. I mean, you can't roll out next spring. Hey guys, here's what your schedule's going to look like in 100 days. Like this thing's got to get going, and you got to get moving with some decisions. I know the playoff expansion deal, it doesn't have to be decided till December, and it may not be there. But boy, you can't shelf the discussions and say, "Hey, let's celebrate college football." You better get to work and get some decisions made quickly.
Yeah, that college football playoff, the new deal has to be, or the new agreement for expansion, December the 1st is that deadline. All right, plenty of topics coming out of Destin from the spring meetings last week. A lot of talk and recruiting happening right now over at Volquest.com. Go check out all the work that Matt and Austin and Brent have been bringing us and will continue to bring us here on the site. June, a busy month. No better place to stay up to date on Tennessee recruiting than at Volquest.com. Come hang out with us on the General's Quarters, where we drop notes all the time and give you guys the latest information that we have. $1 for 7 days. Come check us out. $1 for your first week at Volquest.com. Go check us out here today. For Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, Rob Lewis, I am Eric Kane. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Tuesday morning Volquest podcast. We'll be back on Thursday with the mailbag edition of the Volquest podcast.